Hi, this is Jessica. Join me today to make this faux quilted fabric postcard. This is a quick and easy project, so it isn't designed to be perfect. But if you're a perfectionist, I'll give you some tips to make it look even better than it already does. For our first step, we're going to mark off a 1-inch grid on our Peltex interfacing, which I've already cut to 4 by 6 inches. If you want this to be perfect, cut yours 5 by 7 and trim away the extra later. Also make sure your grid is exact. Mine might be a little off. Once you have your grid, the next step is to apply your fabric to the Peltex. Here again, I'm using a glue stick. You could also use fusible if you have fabric that has fusible on it. I've decided I want to use up scraps instead, which is why I'm using the glue stick method. I have 1-inch squares, and then I have 1-inch squares that are cut in half to form triangles, which is what I'm making this pinwheel out of. My squares are not exactly 1 inch because they just came out of my scrap bin and I didn't measure when I cut them. That is definitely going to be something that makes the difference between your corners matching up exactly and you losing your points when you put them together. So if you're the perfectionist out there, you want to measure when you cut. But if you just want a really cute project, it's really not necessary, I don't think. So you can tell that this doesn't take too long, although I do have it sped up for the video. You're just going to want to play with this. This glue is something where if you don't like it, you can reposition it. And you might have seen me doing that a couple times where I wanted it to meet the corners a little bit better. So I picked it up and trimmed it a little bit after I put it down. You can design anything you want here. With our design glued down, now it's time to go to the sewing machine. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch to secure all of the fabric. This is really simple and easy, and I'm just going to do all of the vertical lines first, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do all the horizontals, picking up some of the diagonals along the way, just whatever you see as the most convenient way to get all of the edges of your designs. This is somewhere that can introduce a little bit of error because what I do is when I need to do the diagonals, I backtrack by using a straight stitch. And if you looked at my original postcards, you can see sometimes my straight stitch was a little crooked. And that's somewhere that I wasn't really paying too much attention when I did this. If you want this to look great, you could actually start and stop your thread and cut it, so secure a new thread, or just pay real careful attention to make sure your straight stitch is running right down the center of the zigzag. Additionally, the more attention you've spent when you placed the fabric, the less likely you're going to have to curve a little bit to make sure you catch all the edges. But no matter what you do, what's really important is to make sure that you catch all the edges. With the sewing done, now it's time to glue on the postcard back. So again, I'm going to apply glue. I'm going to get my 4 by 6 piece of white. If you used a dark thread like I did, you might want to use 2 pieces of fabric just so that you make sure none of it bleeds through into your writing edge, but I don't find it too noticeable, so I didn't do that here. You'll also notice that my fabric hangs over the side of the Peltex. So once I finish attaching the back, I also need to use my rotary cutter and clip off those extra edges so that this is a 4 by 6 postcard. With that done, it's time to go back to the sewing machine one more time. Here I've set my machine up for a satin stitch, and I'm using the satin stitch, or a very tight zigzag is what satin stitch is, all the way around the corners. This is going to secure that white fabric that I glued to the back of the postcard, and it's also going to close up our edges. Once you finish this step, you have a fabric postcard that you can write a message on the back, address, affix your postage, don't forget the extra for the non-machinable rate, and put it in the mail. You might have a couple loose threads you want to clip, but otherwise, I think this looks pretty good and you're done.